Welcome back, gamers. We are 2 weekends into alpha testing, and I think this is a good time to share my thoughts on how Ashes of Creation is standing up to my expectations so far. For starters, the very first day of alpha testing with regards to networking was pretty rough. There were some pretty long queue times, which did not reflect what position in queue you were actually in most of the time. I personally did not have any rubber banding or performance issues apart from some game crashes, but I would see plenty of other players getting stuck, running in place, or lagging across my screen. Monsters would get stuck in place or float and not respond to combat. There were these walls of death where dozens of players were getting stuck in a line, crossing server grid thresholds, and plenty of game crashes in populated areas, and some game crashes in not populated areas, just running around and exploring. Now, as for my gameplay experience, it was a bit rough as well. You spawn in a Lionhold where you're met with a lot of NPCs with quest markers above their head and a commission board to add to the overstimulus of quests with underwhelming rewards. But there is only one quest that truly matters, which was the Sweat of Your Brow quest that introduces you to your first set of gathering tools, your first mount, and the overwhelmingly charming AI voice acting. Now, I know this is a sandbox MMO, and there is no one correct path to start your journey into Vera, but starting this game I was met with choice overload, while oddly also having no real sense of direction of what to do first. So I think something Intrepid Studios should at least consider at some point in the future is adding unique quest markers for tutorial quests, like the Sweat of Your Brow quest, to at least give new players a starting point. Because for players entering Vera for the first time with no idea on how to get started, they may have a negative experience like I did. So to escape the overstimulating Lionhold, I wanted to start my journey at a proper node like Miralith. So after spending 10 minutes running over there and checking out the town, I realized that you should not sell your Glant at the hunting lodge because I got 0 money back. Although I believe that is now fixed, or at least realized as an issue. But I also realized that all monsters surrounding the node were too high level and could one-shot me. Now, Ashes of Creation operates off of a world manager and delivers dynamically spawning monsters based off node development and player activity. So since all nodes start at level 3 in the alpha instead of level 0, I assume that this is why they were also starting with higher level monsters. So after contemplating my life in Vera so far, in a cave, I spent another 10 minutes crawling back to Lionhold to find proper monsters to kill. Needless to say, my first day in Vera, I did not get a lot done. The second day of the alpha was much better. The massive walls of death were majorly gone. I don't recall any rubber banding issues or desync issues for myself. I reported some bugs, and I partied up with some helpful people to grind out the Gem Spring Point of Interest, while also figuring out how to complete the Set to Motion Scholar quest. But most importantly, I did not crash a single time in nearly 4 hours of gameplay. The improvement in networking issues that Intrepid Studios completed in just one day was absolutely incredible. Even throughout this past week when Alpha 2 servers were down, they were still testing on PTR servers and continuously pushing out patches for networking and performance improvements, along with various other things. If this is what we can expect every week moving forward, then I think we will see this game progress very quickly. Unfortunately, I was not able to play Sunday of the first weekend due to a mix of not being home and DDoS attacks, but to Intrepid Studios' credit, Steven is very transparent with all ongoing issues and frequently posts updates in the Discord. And moving into Friday of the second weekend, it looked like they were still under DDoS attacks, but it did not affect me getting into the game at all, and my queue times were fairly non-existent that second weekend as well. So, moving into the second weekend of testing, I thought it was incredibly fun, and it was a much better experience compared to my first weekend. I only experienced a few crashes, but the game performed pretty smoothly, so I'll just get into my general gameplay thoughts for the rest of the video. This is a very grindy game and it takes a long time to level. I spent close to an hour at Highwayman Hills at level 9 and my experience bar probably only went up about 30%, but I am glad Ashes of Creation is giving us this grindy experience because it makes leveling actually feel rewarding. which is something a lot of current MMOs neglect. In New World and Throne and Liberty, you can hit max level in just one weekend if you tried hard enough. In my experience, this makes leveling not rewarding because it's given so freely. In Ashes of Creation, if I see someone around level 15 to 20 already, then that is something to be respected. On my personal journey to level 9, I looked forward to every new level because I learned a new ability or improved an existing ability that actually felt like it made my character stronger and impacted my combat in a meaningful way. Which leads me into my favorite thing about Ashes so far, and that is the combat. The combat is very interactive and involving. Every encounter, you need to be aware of your positioning, skill rotations, and resource management. There is no pressing auto attack and looking away from your monitor. There's a very real chance of player death if you stop paying attention, and death is very punishing. You go into experience debt and you lose some of your hard-earned glint and materials. Ashes of Creation's combat system makes the long grind of leveling actually not so boring. I played as a Vec Mage and the mage abilities feel great. Pressing an ability feels good and responsive. Lightning Strike looks and sounds incredible. The status effect conditions are very clear and work well. I was in a party with a bard and their abilities look and sound great as well. People say that there's a lack of content within the game right now, which is true based off of what Intrepid Studios currently has planned for the entirety of the game, but after putting in a couple of dozen hours, I would say that the lack of content isn't really an issue, but maybe a lack of knowledge of what content is currently accessible. There's much more to do other than grinding for countless hours. The more I played and the more I learned, the more fun I started to have. I spent a significant amount of time in Miraleth looking through the artisan profession, processing and crafting tables, learning all the possible things that could be created at novice artisan levels. Taking a look at crafting a simple fishing pole, I saw that oak timber, copper fragments, and linen thread were all required. You need lumberjacking to acquire oak wood, lumber milling to process oak wood into timber, mining to acquire copper, metal working to process copper into fragments, harvesting to acquire flax, and weaving to process flax into linen thread. That is 6 separate artisan professions just to craft one novice fishing pole, and this is a similar story for a lot of the other craftable items. You can sink a lot of time into these artisan professions at just the novice level. I did get to participate in a caravan event as a defender where multiple caravans got launched. Unfortunately, after a short few minutes, everyone's game seemed to crash and the caravans just turned into gray caravan models. Maybe next weekend. I had a lot of fun doing monster hunting commissions. You're given a yellow circle on your map to search for a specific named monster, which felt like a fun scavenger hunt at times. And the monsters were actually tough enough to require multiple players to defeat. While the commission rewards are not the greatest, the drops you can get from these monsters are cool and unique, like this Knock Knock Key and a Komodo Dragon. This pretty much sums up my second weekend of alpha playtesting, and I had a ton of fun learning about the game. The improvements we saw weekend to weekend, and even just day to day, shows how hard Intrepid Studios is actively working on this game. It makes me very hopeful and excited moving forward. The progress we're going to see month to month, I hope will be significant, and it will be very telling of Ashes of Creation's future. Thanks for listening and hearing out my experience from the first 2 weekends. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button or subscribing, as it will help me out greatly. And if you're interested, you can catch me streaming Ashes of Creation live here on YouTube or on Twitch. I'll leave a link to my Twitch in the description below. And if you got to play the alpha already, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Or if you are in the second alpha wave coming November 8th, let me know what you are most excited for. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.